Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media.
What the hell's going on out here?
It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
Fine, people. Let's move like we got a purpose.
Affirmative.
It's time for the Greg Anthony Show on CRN Digital Talk Radio.
Wow, that intro even scares me. Oh, no. Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, people of all races, colors, and creeds, welcome back to the greatest show on earth. I mean, the greatest show on earth. And you know, I don't even know, though, folks. It's Greg Anthony here. I don't know if you can even say ladies and gentlemen anymore, can you? Or can you say boys and girls? I mean, people get fired for that now. Maybe I'll be thrown off the air by the FTC or whatever they're called. But you know what? Everybody can listen to the show. I don't care if you're who you are. You can listen, except only people who wake up one day, think they're a man, and then the next day they wake up and they think they're a woman. You can't listen. I can't take it. I will go crazy if I know anybody is listening to my show that thinks that way. But you know what? People always ask me, Greg, why do you say the show is the greatest show on earth? And I say, because it's better than a lot of things out there right now. Better than being the president of Tanzania. All right, Mr. John Magufuli. Okay, guess what he did one day? He didn't like the WHO, not the band, but the World Health Organization. So he decided to play a little trick. He said, I don't think these tests really work. You know, so he sent in the blood of a goat, the saliva of a pheasant, and the juice of a papaya, giving them real human names. And guess what happened? They all came back positive for COVID virus. And then he kicked the WHO out, not the band, the next day. Yes, they did. You know, people come to this show, CRN3, Channel 3, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Monday through Friday for a lot of reasons. You know, it's not all fun and games, but they come here because this show is actually better than listening to the Pope. Okay, sitting in St. Peter's Square right now, I got a notice from Rome he's doing this. Nobody comes anymore because they're afraid. But he's sitting there doing an exorcism, and all of a sudden the devil comes out of that obelisk and says, boy, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? Boy, I got to get a laugh machine. But anyway, one more thing. Since we're talking about the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order here, this show is better than going to confession and, saying, bless me, Father, for I have sinned, asking to have your sins forgiven from a priest who's probably sexually molested about 30,000 children all over the world. Now, ain't that crazy? But anyway, not all fun and games. Greg Anthony here on the CRN3. Please come back every day. My guest today, yes, I have a guest for the full hour. And boy, is this a special time for me. The first time I interviewed, and since we're talking about molestation and child pedophilia and all these different things, my guest is a former New York police detective, okay? Now, his name's Jim Rothstein. He's on the line. And the first time I interviewed Jim, I had to look back at this, was Tuesday, December 5th, 2006. And for about 4 or 5 years, me and Jim talked a lot. And how this whole thing started was I walked into a grocery store one time, and I saw all these kids on these, milk cartons. And I go, where the hell do they go? Why are they all, always there? And I said, I got to find somebody who knows the truth about these pedophile rings, the child trafficking, because it always seems to get worse, no matter how many times the government tells us there's a war on all this stuff. Now, Jim Rothstein's really a true American patriot. He uncovered how, boy, the evil claws of these pedophile rings go right to the very top. Jim had solid evidence and really had solid evidence of high-level Vatican and high-level U.S. officials going all the way to the White House, including Cardinal Spellman and all of those people in the White House during that period of time. He had them nailed to the wall with solid information, and guess what happened? They never were prosecuted. And basically, Jim was told to leave the force, and also was, boy, I'll tell you, the story's so big, I got to get Jim here. Jim, it's good to have you. How are you today?
Good, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's been a while, Jim. I think the last time we talked on an interview was about 2010. And I remember when I first interviewed you in 2006, I asked you the question, are we really making any headway since the 80s when you headed up the New York task force for the governor to get to the bottom of these pedophile rings? And I remember you told me specifically, it always gets worse. It's worse now. So I imagine now, 10 years later, if I asked you that same question, what would be your answer?
The same answer. Things haven't changed. All these things are covered up. They do this great big thing like they're doing this and doing that, and yet any cop, whatever you may be, does an investigation of any depth, his career is over. And I've had him right here, so I know when I say that, and that's one of the reasons nothing ever gets done.
Now, Jim, you're. Go ahead.
The same thing goes with any politicians who want to do something. If they do, their careers are over.
Right. You know what? Your story tells it all. Go back to when you got into Vice and how this all progressed, and tell us the story about how you obtained this information, how you nailed Spellman, Cardinal Spellman, who you said was the most powerful man in the United States, and how you were told to stand down. Go ahead. It's a great story.
Well, it really was funny because I got assigned to working this in 1966 because I came from Minnesota in Stearns County, and the captain said I should take care of my own garbage, as he called it, but he used another word. And that's how I got assigned. And one of the first things I did, I saved a prostitute's life, who then put me in touch with a pedophile. One of the most notorious of all was Ed Skull Murphy. And once I got to know him, Ed had a guy who was called Jack the Sailor, who had been caught in Spellman's bedroom. And they gave him to me so I could use that to keep them away from coming after me. That's how I found out about human compromise and all that stuff. I started right at the top. And it's been that way ever since. There's people out there, and it turned out Skull was probably the worst of them all. And when the State Select Committee on Crime got started, he told them, he says, when I met an honest cop with integrity, I knew I didn't have to do this anymore. And he became one of my very, very best people to work with.
Now, the kid that you were, that you had evidence because of a kid that stole Spellman's shoe, Cardinal Spellman's shoe, and then you went to your superiors to try to get to the bottom of the investigation. Tell us what happened, what they told you.
Well, basically, no superior wanted to know about it. I had been what they called cut loose, which meant that I actually had to gather the information, and if anybody wanted it, they come and get it. So I never had to report that to any, not that I had to, even if I wanted to, nobody wanted to hear it.
Mm-hmm. And so you ended up going to Morgan, I think the DA at the time, right? He told you to stand down, and tell us what went on there.
Well, that was another case where we had a big operation, prostitution operation, and we went to the district attorney, which was Robert Morgenthau, and wanted to put a wiretap in, and what he did was turn us down, and he sent his detectives there to raid the place to get all the files so we wouldn't get them.
And so at that point, if I can remember right, because this story is so interesting, you were told to go investigate a Father Ritter, correct? Instead, and to
Well,
stand down on the other,
yes, Father Bruce Ritter, when he first started on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the late 60s or so, I don't remember the exact date, I was sent to investigate him. And he came back clean. There was no information that he was a pedophile or anything. And over the years, I was sent a couple of times. And then finally, one time I got called. Pope John Paul I had asked Father Ritter to bring us in, and we did, me and my partner, Matty Rosenthal. And while we were there, the Pope had found out what had happened in the church and wanted the pedophiles cleaned out. And we were to be the two detectives assigned to it. And
wow, that's getting into deep water. Go ahead.
Yes, and 10 days later, the Pope was murdered. And
after you spoke with him on the phone, correct?
Yes, he was. We were right there when he called, and we had a conference call going. And then when he got killed, about 2 weeks later, 2 federal agents brought a kid from Detroit, Michigan, in the back seat of a car to New York to Father Ritter's confessional, and was given to us so that we wouldn't know who they were. And the kid told us who was responsible for the murder of John Paul I. And so we were doing the investigations, and eventually it got shut down. Nothing happened. And years later, they accused Ritter of being a pedophile. And I got word of it, and I called, and then I called Cardinal O'Connor, and Cardinal O'Connor put me in touch with Peter Grace, the highest lay Catholic. And I told him, I said, this is it. I'm coming down. I was living up in Maine at the time, and I headed to New York to straighten this stuff out because Ritter was an old man by now, and they had totally destroyed him. And that's what they did.
And he was clean, correct?
As far, I never, ever found any credible evidence. I mean, they had all kinds of stuff they came up with, but I knew what was going on because I knew the people. And what they were trying to do was shut him down. The other thing Ritter was doing, he was going to buy the New York Hotel, which had another segment of New York in the underground that wanted it too, so they destroyed him.
So they let the bad guys go, and they tell you to go find something on the good guys, is the way I'd interpret it.
Oh, well, that was common. That was common.
Yeah. So,
Ritter,
Jim, we got to go ahead.
But Ritter, I had never found any credible, over the years, I had never gotten any credible information on it. So that was that.
Jim, I want you to hang on because we're going to come back in the second half hour. Hold on. I got to do something in the next segment, a short 5-minute segment. But you stay on, and then the whole next half hour, I want to tell people what they did to you, how you left the police force, and then some of the people you tried to help, like the missing paper boy from Des Moines, Johnny Gosh, and others who you tried to help privately to get their sons back from these pedophile rings. Tell us how they operate, what people are up against even today, and of course, it's not getting any better. Okay, back in 3 minutes with the Greg Anthony Show here on CRN3 And then we'll have Jim Rothstein back in the second half hour.
Hey, folks, Greg Anthony here. And during this COVID-19 pandemic, it's deja vu foreclosure time all over again. I'm talking behind in your mortgage 1, 2, 3 months and you are out. But there's a company out there that will go to bat for you. IWillSaveYourHome.com. And remember, those words will do just that. Over the years, with the courage of David versus Goliath, the people at I Will Save Your Home have brought many of these money-hungry mortgage lenders to their knees. Remember the wave of foreclosures and the 2008 financial mess? Well, when the dust finally settles from this COVID-19 pandemic, it won't be a wave, but a tsunami of default foreclosures is on the Great Depression horizon. If your home is at risk of foreclosure, the problem must be tackled at once, and that's exactly what the people at IWillSaveYourHome.com will do, because one wrong move could spell disaster. They will specialize in working tirelessly to restructure and get you a fair and just loan modification. And during this COVID crisis, new laws are popping up every day, and they will untie all the legal ropes that just may save your home. A beautiful home, loving family has always been your American dream, so don't let foreclosure and these big banks turn your dream into a nightmare. Don't delay. Call today. Contact IWillSaveYourHome.com at 619-268-3687. That's 619-268-3687. They're a proud sponsor of the Greg Anthony Show.
Stop the presses. Cue the chorus. The musical ensemble Columbus has triumphantly reopened. Columbus has thrown open its golden doors to deliciousness and delightment to please the palate of a panting public in desperate need of greatness and grandeur and all-around phenomenal, gleeful times and gratifyingly glorious grub. You see, when you really want and need Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. Yes, it's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Yes, the world's greatest steaks, the very best catch for the 7 Seas. Columbo's family Italian recipes and internationally acclaimed meatballs beckon your reappearance at the House of Yum Yum. Do dreams come true? Oh, yes, they do. Columbo's is open with reckless abandon to sate your insatiable senses. Columbo's, that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia bene.
This is The Entertainment Answer. The new political comedy Irresistible is a bipartisan look at how silly and out of hand elections can get. It stars Steve Carell and Chris Cooper, and Carell said this about the script.
It's really not so much about the politics themselves. It doesn't necessarily lean right or left. It's really mostly about the people who are caught in between.
Irresistible is rated R for language and available on demand starting June 26th. Remember to be safe and smart out there. For This Entertainment Answer, I'm Matt Mungle.
Okay, back on the Greg Anthony Show. And boy, folks, we have a first today. Let me tell you something. Let's talk finances. But you know something? We have the lowest credit score in history, which is mine, on the air right now. And I've got Dr. Michael Grayson, who holds 3 credit industry records, including the world's highest credit score. I got to get that number. But anyway, I want to talk finances with Dr. Grayson. And doctor's going to show us how not to make payments or how to stop making payments. And you know, with this COVID virus problem, a lot of people are hurting. Doctor, can you tell us a little bit about your credit program?
Okay, so the first thing, you know, the CARES Act, everybody's talking about the CARES Act. Everybody's very excited about getting stimulus money, but nobody's really taking advantage of the credit rider that's a major part of that. It's in the credit protection that's a part of that.
Okay. And how can you do that?
Okay. So the first thing everybody should do, so when any of my clients call, if you've been negatively impacted by COVID-19, you should send out a correspondence to every single creditor and ask them to include you in their COVID-19 hardship program. Part of the CARES Act, every single creditor in the country, that means your mortgage companies, your landlords, were encouraged to offer this type of programming. So you have to request it, though. Some creditors, like I have U.S. Bank has my car note, they actually called me and ask me if I wanted to be enrolled in that program. But most creditors are not calling you. You have to write to them, and then you can receive that program. So some creditors are doing, 3 to 12 months of deferment. They're doing loan modifications. They're doing settlements. I mean, it will stop the bleeding. And once you have done this, step 2 is to retroactively clean your credit. So the credit bureaus are required to, as part of this provision, they can retroactively go back to January 2020 and clean your derogatory credit that was associated with COVID-19.
Wow. Besides COVID, you have over 35 years in the credit industry. How have you helped people over the years so people know a little bit about you?
Okay, so I currently have all 3 credit industry records, including the highest credit score ever recorded, which was a perfect
What is that?
990. 990.
Wow.
So we help small business people, individuals, achieve perfect credit. So my average client is a small business owner. Maybe he's broke and has bad credit. So we give him perfect credit, 720 or higher credit score. We give him perfect business credit. Then we match him with our lenders and get him some money. So every individual out there, it should take you about 3 to 6 months to restore your credit this year using the provisions.
All right. Something, is this a free service or is there a fee involved with your company?
We do have a fee. We're nonprofit, so our fee is tax deductible. But there is a fee for each of our programs. Now, to the payment deferment, I wrote an ebook, and it's available on Amazon. It's only $3, and it has the documents in there that you need to send to all your lenders so you can at least stop your payments, and then you can come to us, and, our basic product for $99 a month will restore your credit up to $850, and for $29 a month, we will insure your credit against all future derogatory. So for $29 a month, you can maintain perfect credit for the rest of your life.
Now, you wrote a book on fixing credit called How to Stop Making Payments. And where can you get that?
Okay, on Amazon right now, if you ask for Dr. Michael C. Grayson's book on how to stop making payments, and it'll tell you how to do it the right way. Don't just stop making payments. I read an article the other day that said that they're expecting record foreclosures and evictions, and banks were complaining about the large volume of defaults. Nobody in America should be defaulting right now or losing their house to foreclosure. You should not be losing cars to repossession. That is impossible with this CARES Act in place.
We got about a minute, Doc. Have you ever seen anything like this economy gone haywire like this? And, you probably have an influx of business, but tell us your secret here in keeping, afloat during this tough time.
Okay, so your credit is the only thing that's going to really bail you out. What I want people to keep in mind is the government has pumped an extra $5 trillion into the economy. So that money is still there, but it's only going to be available to people who have really good credit. Your credit is the only thing that's going to bail you out and keep you from really being destroyed by COVID-19.
Okay, thanks, Doc. And we'll have you on again. You can get in touch with Dr. Grayson at perfectcredit4, that's number 4, life.com. Thanks a lot, Doc.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'm Dave Hull. How'd you like to receive your very own autographed copy of my award-winning book, Hullabaloo, The Life and Misadventures of me, LA radio legend Dave Hull? I'll sign it for you personally at a specially reduced $30 CRN digital talk radio price. All you have to do is call the Dave Hull Group, 760-320-4434. 760-320-4434. We're waiting for your call right now.
It's totally normal to be constipated with belly pain, straining, and bloating again and again.
No way.
Maybe it's occasional constipation.
Maybe it's not.
You could have a chronic condition called irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C. Linzess, or linaclotide, is a prescription that treats IBS-C in adults. Linzess works differently than laxatives to help relieve belly pain and let you have more frequent and complete bowel movements. Individual results may vary. Do not give to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Maybe it's not occasional constipation. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS. You may be able to talk to a doctor online. Visit linzess.com, sponsored by Allergan and Ironwood.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 888-912-1332. 888-912-1332. 888-912-1332. Call right now. 888-912-1332.
Hey folks, Greg Anthony here, and during this COVID-19 pandemic, it's deja vu foreclosure time all over again. I'm talking behind in your mortgage 1, 2, 3 months and you are out, but there's a company out there that will go to bat for you. IWillSaveYourHome.com, and remember those words will do just that. Over the years, with the courage of David versus Goliath, the people at I Will Save Your Home have brought many of these money-hungry mortgage lenders to their knees. Remember the wave of foreclosures in the 2008 financial mess? Well, when the dust finally settles from this COVID-19 pandemic, it won't be a wave, but a tsunami of default foreclosures is on the Great Depression horizon. If your home is at risk of foreclosure, the problem must be tackled at once, and that's exactly what the people at IWillSaveYourHome.com will do, because one wrong move could spell disaster. They will specialize in working tirelessly to restructure and get you a fair and just loan modification. And during this COVID crisis, new laws are popping up every day, and they will untie all the legal ropes that just may save your home. A beautiful home, loving family has always been your American dream, so don't let foreclosure and these big banks turn your dream into a nightmare. Don't delay. Call today. Contact IWillSaveYourHome.com at 619-268-3687. That's 619-268-3687. They're a proud sponsor of the Greg Anthony Show.
Okay, Greg Anthony here. Sit tight on CRN3, Channel 3. That's crntalk.com. You can go there and listen live, or they'll tell you how to get a phone app where you can listen to CRN at your whim. Anytime you want to, just click on the phone and you can listen to the Greg Anthony Show. I got to get right back to my guest, Jim Rothstein, a former New York police detective who basically was in Vice, and he basically was covering and trying to uncover some of the biggest pedophile rings, child trafficking rings in the New York area that went all over the country. And Jim, you went to you had evidence on some of the highest level officials. You always said that these pedophile rings go to the top in both Cardinal Spellman and the Vatican, as well as the White House and state governments. Jim, once you had all this information, what did they finally do to you? Tell us the story about how they got rid of you, so to speak.
Well, I came into work one day, and I was approached by an old boss who I had worked for when he was a lieutenant on an investigation, and he told me, Jim, you have a choice. You can either retire or. And so I says, okay, I'll take my retirement, and that's how I got retired. I was done.
So,
there was
so they
no
kind
doubt that I was done.
Now, before that, didn't they even try to give you a bribe with your partner, Maddie Rosenthal?
Oh, yeah. We had one time two people, or they came in with a suitcase of money, one for me and one for my partner, and each one had $1 million in $100 bills in it. And my partner opened his bag up and took a bundle of hundreds out, and it was offered to us in a bar, and threw the money in the middle of the floor and told them it wasn't enough. And that was it. We got up and left. And, oh, yeah, we were offered all kinds of money, but the biggest was the $1 million.
And so they really, you always said this, and I have to ask you again, it's getting worse. I mean, it's probably worse now, like you said, than it was the last time I interviewed you 10 years ago. And they seem to arrest some of the lower level people, but they never get to the top. So,
well, yes, that's always been the way it was. And when we went after the top people, the only investigation that we ever did that was to the very top, where we got 11 of the top 12 pimps in the United States. And it was done with the feds, the New York Police Department, Minneapolis, Columbus, Ohio, and a couple other cities, where we convicted 11 of the 12 pimps biggest pimps in the United States. And it has never been done again. And after that, every investigation was stopped.
Well, you know, before we get into, I want to get into some of the work you did after you left the force, trying to help mothers and fathers find their children after they've been taken by these pedophile child sex trafficking rings, and how they really operate, so people understand that it starts with the local level of law enforcement as well. But tell us a little bit about the situation with Jeffrey Epstein now. I know you had no contact with him years ago, but what do you think? It's a big story now. The killing of him. Maybe he was killed in prison. Now they arrested one of a woman that worked with him named Maxwell. What's your thoughts on that? Is he one of the top guys, or just somebody thrown out there to divert attention from the real top of the heap, so to speak?
Well, like I said, I never investigated, and I usually don't talk about the particular case if I didn't investigate it. But as to what is coming out and happened, if he got killed or didn't get killed, that's normal. You had Jeffrey Dahmer. They tried to kill the son of Sam. You can go on. And in other cases, big operators have, and there was so seldom that anything was done, nothing happened, And here, when they put this guy and it came to light, yes, but what the big part here is, and they don't even talk about it, is the human compromise. Now, what were they doing besides turning tricks and stuff like that? How many people were using their information to blackmail people? It's called human compromise. They get you into bed, and it's just like the Watergate break-in. There's a book. We called it the book, which kept the record. It said what kind of sex they wanted, how much they spent, if they had a fetish or anything like that. So as far as, and from what I've heard, Epstein is no bigger than, there were guys that we had at the time that were bigger than they are.
All right. I want to get to some of the work you did after you left the force. You just started helping people who actually lost their children, and you would go and investigate and try to get them back. One case that we talked about many times was the paper boy, the 10 or 12-year-old paper boy from Des Moines, Iowa, Johnny Gosh, who was taken off his paper route. And I asked you on the phone before we did the interview, he's still not back. But tell us a little bit about that story and try to explain in the rest of this half hour how these pedophile rings work. How can they get away with it? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, it's not just Johnny Gosch. Even at that time we talked about it. It started off in 1971 when there were 3 kids killed on East 64th Street in New York. They were killed. The bodies disappeared. They were never found. I know where they ended up after I retired. I saw the picture and I recognized where they had been buried, but nobody wanted to know about it. Then came the Eaton Pats case, if you remember that, in New York. That was directly involved with it. And then after that came Johnny Gosch, then the Martin boy in Iowa and the Allen boy. And then you had Jacob Wetterling in St. Joe, Minnesota. And after that, then it stopped, that particular clique. But that thing went on because it was part of a ring that was connected with the Son of Sam case. And they had a thing called the Smiley Face Killers. And these were all dovetailing off of that stuff. There was different rings. One of the Smiley Face Killer and stuff is part of what we had called Interstate 9094 murders. They've loosely followed that, and it was different cults and stuff that were using and killing kids.
So Johnny Gosch wakes up one morning. I remember you and we were talking with Johnny's mother on the air several times. Johnny woke up one morning and was put in a car and taken away. Take us back to that, because it really explains how this really operates. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was a newspaper boy, and he went out to make his delivery, and they picked him up. And from the information that we got, it was well planned, like all these cases were, and they just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then when I got involved, there were things that we followed on this across the country. When I got off the department, I never got to retire. I retired from the police department, but then there were different groups of people that asked me to look into different things like this. And all these cases, not one of them has ever been solved. And every one of them should have been solved, because you found where people stepped in and stopped these investigations.
And I remember Noreen, his mother, told us, she said, listen, there was evidence that, people saw him being taken into a car, kidnapped, but the local police refused to follow up on it, correct?
Well, not that they refused. I spoke to the captain, who told me he was told to stand down by higher authorities. And that's what he did.
And you say after about 24 to 48 hours, that's all the time they need, and a lot of these kids are never seen again, correct?
Yes, but there was an underground. At one point, I had a man, he was 32 years old. He committed suicide on the front steps of the Bojess restaurant. And when we looked into it, we found that the kid had been kidnapped out of Texas and put into the underground, and they reported that he was dead. They never found the body until we found it that he had committed suicide at the age of 32. And so there were other instances like this, and we did. And when I was working, in fact, just a couple of years ago, I had a guy call to thank me. He said he was looking for me for 40 years to thank me that I saved his life, because he eventually got out of it and made it, So there was an underground set up across the country for these kids to escape in when they were done being used.
Right. So then they never did. Well, Johnny Gosch is an interesting case, because I remember you telling me about it, and I just wanted to bring this back. That once they had him, what did they do to these kids to keep them there, outside of forcibly keep them? How do they turn them into basically what these people really are to begin with, pedophiles? So what happens a lot of times? Go ahead.
Yeah, they're put into it. They're kidnapped, forced into it, and then in order to survive, they got to go along with the program. And usually, when they're done with them, they stay in the underground because if they come out and say something, they're killed. So that's the real quick. There's hours and hours of stuff to talk about when you get to these cases. And eventually, they have, like in the Jacob Wetterling case, they have somebody who admitted that he'd killed them or took them. And the same with the Pats case, which is there's so much evidence that shows it wasn't true.
With Gosh, for example, have you heard anything happen so far that that changed in the last 10 years? Has he showed up? Is he still alive? Do you know anything more?
Yes, I had a call one time where Wetterling, Gosh, and Jimmy Gibson were supposedly going to come here to my house to surrender because I would have been able to keep them alive. But something happened. Another kid by the name of Gibson got arrested in Washington, and they went back underground again.
And
I can't prove it, but I had been called to see if I would help them come out from the underground.
Well, I think this is the right. You can go to Johnny Gosch, that's GOSCH.com. I think that website's still up. And if you want to read about his mother Noreen put it up. And boy, I'll tell you, she had some run-ins with the FBI over this case. Do you remember some of the things she told us about
and I did too. I had some really confrontational run-ins with them. But then there were others, agents, who really were trying to do something. And it's really to the point where you don't even want to talk about it. But that's the problem. These guys, if they do their job, their careers are over. And I can name you, for instance, on the very first case I told you about the pimps, when we finished up, everybody on the federal end was gone. And I had a guy I was working with here for years, and one day when he went after one aspect of this tied to the Wetterling case, when he got done with it, he was transferred. His phone number and nothing worked anymore. So that was the end of him.
So it looks like somebody's pulling the strings from the top, telling even the FBI to lay off at the top investigations, correct?
Oh yes, there were so many agents that I've worked with in the years, really hard-working, good guys, and then it's like everybody. Like I said, everybody gets stopped, and even in my little town here, we passed a resolution that we took to the governor of the state of Minnesota, which would have handled that to protect the cops, prosecutors, and everybody else, politicians who go after this stuff. Nothing ever happened. They wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. One politician in the United States did, and she never ran for office again. And she was from Minnesota, and her name was Michelle Bachmann. But she was the only one that acted on that resolution. And if that resolution ever was put into law, I'll bet you we could shut this stuff down by 85%.
Jim, stick around, will you? We're going to do one more short segment at the end of the break here. So stick around. I'm talking with Jim Rothstein, a former New York police detective. and we've got a lot of interesting information to talk about. And I'll tell you something. What's going on in New York? They're cutting $1 billion from the police just when we need it, right? Back in 3 minutes on CRN3, The Greg Anthony Show.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
This is The Entertainment Answer. The hilarious comedy My Spy is available on Amazon Prime Video starting June 26th. It's about a hardened CIA operative named JJ who has been demoted and finds himself at the mercy of a precocious 9-year-old girl named Sophie.
Is it too late to homeschool me?
Lots of laughs and heart in this one, and it was fun watching actor Dave Bautista in this type of role.
There is one thing I'm good at.
My Spy is rated PG-13 for some spy-type action, but otherwise a pretty safe option. For this Entertainment Answer, I'm Matt Mungle.
Hey folks, Greg Anthony here, and during this COVID-19 pandemic, it's deja vu foreclosure time all over again. I'm talking behind in your mortgage 1, 2, 3 months and you are out, but there's a company out there that will go to bat for you. IWillSaveYourHome.com, and remember those words will do just that. Over the years, with the courage of David versus Goliath, the people at I Will Save Your Home have brought many of these money-hungry mortgage lenders to their knees. Remember the wave of foreclosures in the 2008 financial mess? Well, when the dust finally settles from this COVID-19 pandemic, it won't be a wave, but a tsunami of default foreclosures is on the Great Depression horizon. If your home is at risk of foreclosure, the problem must be tackled at once, and that's exactly what the people at IWillSaveYourHome.com will do, because one wrong move could spell disaster. They will specialize in working tirelessly to restructure and get you a fair and just loan modification. And during this COVID crisis, new laws are popping up every day, and they will untie all the legal ropes that just may save your home. A beautiful home, loving family has always been your American dream, so don't let foreclosure and these big banks turn your dream into a nightmare. Don't delay. Call today. Contact IWillSaveYourHome.com at 619-268-3687. That's 619-268-3687. They're a proud sponsor of the Greg Anthony Show.
Okay, Greg Anthony here on CRN3. Come back tomorrow. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 p.m. My guest today is Jim Rothstein, former New York police detective. And Jim, I got a few loose ends to talk about here in the last few minutes, but I wanted to mention, I've done a lot of research over the years on the connections between the Vatican, the Jesuits, and a lot of different things, and their interest in our foreign domestic policy, and I'll say that nicely. And one of the statements I always remembered you telling me, and you had firsthand knowledge of Cardinal Spellman of New York at the time, and now the torch, of course, has been passed to another Cardinal of New York. But you said something that's quite interesting that people may not understand. You said you thought he was one of the most, or the most powerful man in the United States. What led you to believe that?
Well, it was based upon the information that I got and the investigations I did. And I saw how it operated, how the church was used, and this goes back in the early, in 68, I think it was, when I was sent to a federal courthouse in New York to look at some documents, and it showed how they had compromised the church and were using it, number one, to do things, especially the money laundering and moving money and power and such. So they were compromised, and you had the secrecy of the confessional to cover it. I saw those documents, and what had happened was no paper, no pencil, no camera. So I knew about it. And Spellman was compromised, so he had to do whatever they wanted him to do. And it goes on. I have names it just never ends. And that's why I tell you, you never hear anybody, when they talk about human trafficking and stuff, where they talk about the human compromise that goes with it. And the church was a perfect one to use. We could do 3 shows on all the different things that we discovered, but Cardinal Spellman was the first one, and then I was given the guy that had been caught in his bedroom, and that was to make sure that he wouldn't come after me.
Right. I remember that story. You know, just to change gears here. By the way, I'm going to have you on again because you got an angle to a story on the Kennedy assassination that's just amazing, and we don't have time to talk about that today. And you have firsthand knowledge and interviewed a number of people involved, and even had one of them in the precinct you were working at. You had him in the room, and you were talking to him. We'll get to that another day. But what's going on in New York must really make you stay up at night. I mean, hearing they're cutting $1 billion from the police fund, watching how these policemen are taking all this harassment, getting water thrown on them, their cars being burnt up. I mean, they're getting harassed and nobody's doing anything about it. What's your thoughts on this? What is going on, Jim?
This
Go
is
ahead.
exactly back in the middle 60s when they were having all that trouble. The one year we had 13 cops killed. And this is what was going on at that time, the riots and stuff. And they were forcing the cops to cut back and everything. And then when they started killing them, then all of a sudden, politics changed and people found out that it was a scam, that they were using to protest, and I was right in the middle of it. And I can remember people coming to me saying, Jim, they're killing us, the people.
Hey, Jim. Hey, listen, I'm going to have you back on soon. I want to talk about that interest you had in the Kennedy assassination and some of the people you interviewed. Thanks a lot, Jim Rothstein, former New York police detective. Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, come back tomorrow. Great guests, a lot of fun here on the Greg Anthony Show on CRN3 every night from 8 to 9.
Mr. Pop.